Alan Quinlan is here to talk about the weekend's rugby and in the Champions Cup. Defeat for Leinster, an important win for Munster, not quite the killer instinct in the last 20 minutes that maybe they would have wanted. We'll get to Leinster in a minute, but let's talk Munster first.
By the way, before you go on, I feel a little bit like Keith Andrews.
Oh yeah?
Well, I did a few years ago when I gave out about Munster, so it's tricky on him there when he's talking about the soccer and stuff, and former teammates are saying, hey, well, what do you know about it? You've been in the mix here as well, and you weren't so great, and you know, so I feel a little bit. Who
said it to you?
I just felt it. I felt it. I don't know if it was publicly said, but
Did you get deleted from some WhatsApp groups?
A bit of distance. I'm not sure we were in WhatsApp groups. We probably weren't in too many groups then, but a little bit of distance, all right, you know. But anyway, I can feel he's.
Does the distance ever heal, or is it now?
It does. Yeah, it does. I think when Seamus Coleman there is, you know, he's kind of stuck in the middle of that at the moment, and he's defending his manager and the group they're in, and they're trying to stick together and stuff, you know. But in the cold light of day, like, there's sometimes you have to say things, and I think what Keith Andrews was saying was he was giving his strong opinion of the results and the way the matches are going, and it's. I just saw some parallels there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and it's not easy. It's
in the end, it's good for you though, right? Like, it's good that your former teammates don't think you're just a patsy for them to boost them in the media, and that there is a distance between you.
Yeah, there's.
As a pundit,
when you're gone, you're gone. You know what I mean? Anyone will say it, and even guys who've retired in recent years, that's just the way it is. Are you letting your former teammates down by speaking your opinion? You know what I mean? You're saying what two guys would say in a pub if there's a crap match, and they have a chat. They say, well, Ireland were crap, or Munster were crap, or this is wrong, that's wrong. It's so speaking in the media, you're just kind of giving it to a more open forum, really, and then you're judged on being a former player. That is it right or wrong that you say this? And I think he's earned the right to say what he's saying, Keith Andrews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He should be respected for that. And absolutely, Seamus Coleman has the right to challenge him on it. But I just think it's interesting that I was in that situation a few years ago when I got emotional and I got frustrated and I got kind of angry at some performances and maybe some stuff that was going on behind the scenes.
You were on Sky Sports, is that right?
Yeah.
And did you say it was the lowest ebb? What was the phrase you used?
I can't remember. I'm trying to blank it out of my mind. I said the club needed to be dissected and this whole thing needed to be assessed because it was 2 years in the trot that they weren't going to make the knockout stages of Europe. I hadn't any divine right to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. That emotion got the better of me, and it was a build-up of a bit of a frustrating run, and you know, obviously it made headlines and people started assessing my opinion then rather than assessing the situation of does it need to be dissected? Do changes need to be made?
Did any of your teammates get in touch and say well done?
A few, yeah, but they probably don't want me to say it.
No,
a few of the ex-teammates did, yeah, and said, look, you know, because they probably knew that, look, I was going to get some flack for it. Some of the current ones that were involved at the time that I played with weren't as happy with me.
No, of course.
Some of them, like one in particular, said, well, my opinion is I thought you were doing it to enhance yourself and to... Which
is exactly what Seamus Coleman has said here, right?
And it's absolute bullshit. It really annoyed me because I never in my life wanted to be in that situation. I wanted Munster to win every match. You play 15 years with the club. For me, why would I want them to lose or want this situation to enhance myself in the media? Somewhere I never really planned to go anyway. Somewhere I totally realised could end in a flash. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't as if I was trying to carve out this career for myself and here's my opportunity to be controversial. I said what I felt because I passionately felt that changes were needed and it wasn't good enough. And I also said at the time that I just think it's wrong what Seamus Coleman is saying there to Keith Andrews. Well, you've been on the team and you're talking about passing the ball. You weren't so great at passing the ball yourself. That's just petulant. It's silly. I played for Munster. I made many mistakes. I missed tackles. I gave away penalties. I did stupid things. You know what I mean? So you shouldn't, I just think assessing, it doesn't mean that I was perfect, but I'm giving my opinion at that given time that the week before Munster beat Ulster, but before that they were on a run of 5 losses, and if they'd lost in Ulster, it would have been 6 in a trot. I don't know why we've rehashed this thing anyway, but you seem to think it's interesting. It probably is. And you know, that's just the way it is. Former players talking about their teammates. I took absolutely no pleasure out of that, Chair. I took no pleasure. There was no planned moment in my head to say, I'm going to go and have a right cut. Here's my opportunity. It was probably a little bit emotional, but I thought I was quite composed and stuff. And look, I understand if I was a player in the dressing room and I'm hearing an ex-player having a pop, you know, it would upset you a bit. But
yeah, but you've got to respond to it. You have to respond to it, and he's not doing it. Like, you've got to understand.
Well, it was never meant personally.
Yeah.
So sometimes people criticise people, and you think it's a personal attack. None of my stuff was meant to be personal. I just thought, as a group, Munster were not performing where they should be.
Sometimes you got to take it personally to really create that siege mentality that's required to.
Well, you're in the bubble as a player, and when I played, I heard players saying stuff on the outside, ex-players, and I was like, F him, and I'm peed off with him or whatever, you know, and you kind of. But look, it's just the way it is, you know. I never wanted it, but I just found it interesting that now the focus is on Keith Andrews. Do you know what I mean? I know maybe the journalist asked Seamus Coleman that question, but
it was Nathan.
Or Nathan.
It was
yeah,
Nathan.
Sorry, it was Nathan. Yeah, because I only looked at the papers. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, typical.
So I just saw it in the papers.
Stealing our content again.
Yeah, robbing the stuff, and
I hope you gave us a mention on the News Talk Breakfast Show, did you?
It's all.
Jesus,
we covered all the rugby this morning. Yeah, we covered too much rugby this morning, but yeah, it was. It's interesting now that the focus is all on.
Yeah, well, let's move on because I want to talk Munster first. We'll come back to Leinster. Munster's performance is difficult to assess because they did have a man advantage for the majority of the game, and they were clearly going to win, and yet also at the end they almost allowed Gloucester to get back into it, to get 2 losing bonus points, a 4-try and so all in all, a win is a win. You get your 5 points and everybody goes away happy and you forget about it, or are you like, come on, we need a killer instinct here?
I think given it's been a tricky run from given they're away to Leinster, they're away to Exeter, and that has its toll. There's no doubt about it. Physically, emotionally, and I think there was a bit of a hangover there, and they were kind of a bit heavy in their feet the other day coming out. The 1 o'clock kickoff doesn't suit everyone to play at that time. Yeah. The atmosphere was a little bit subdued. There's an expectation. I was part of that. Bonus point win, Munster will win handy. I was doing my assessment on Friday looking at the Gloucester team. I'm seeing a lot of guys who moved from a lot of different clubs in the UK. English guys who are not internationals, and you're thinking, are they kind of journeyman guys? How good are these guys? You know, will they be able for the intensity over 80 minutes that Munster can produce in Thomond Park? And I thought, yeah, I bought into it as well. The crowd did. Everybody, the talk before the game, Munster win by 10, 15, 20 points. I think Gloucester, what you do when you go to Thomond Park, if I was an opposition player, is number one, and I've played there a lot, but I've also worked there a lot in recent years in all the matches, and I've seen all the different variables and different teams. The way they approach it is, you want to start well, set out your stall early, quieten the crowd, physically get into Munster's face and say, right, bring it on, we're here for a game today, we're not running out the gate. And I think Gloucester tried to do that. They crossed the line a little bit with the discipline on occasions, but they were actually a good side. I was very impressed with them. When the Cipriani is sent off, what are you thinking as a player then? You're going, Jesus, we're goose now, or you, and that, sometimes that kind of mentality can nearly help you, because you're kind of going, well, sure, we got to try things now, we got to throw the ball around, we can't, let's not try and contain, and that's what they did. Munster had the ability then to kind of get those scores in the second half, and that one-man advantage helped them, but they were very patchy. There was a lot of mistakes. And the one thing I heard Ronan O'Gara saying a lot in his analysis on Virgin Media was at half-time and full-time was they never built sustained pressure. And that's one thing that, you know, you're nearly guaranteed every time in Thomond Park. So it
wasn't a pattern of play.
No, and you go, the amount of times they held onto the ball the week before. So it's not as if they're not capable of building phases. There were 20, 25 phases over in Exeter on a couple of occasions. So they control the ball really well, but they just seem to kick it away, losing the tackle, turn it over, knock it on. The game was nearly 2 hours there. It was stop, start, someone down injured. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on, TMOs.
TMO, like
and
Jesus.
it just took away that bit of, And to be fair to Gloucester, like they had a right cut. But what do you do when your back is to the wall? But they lack that little bit of ruthless edge, Munster. And
let's talk quickly about the red card. There's a consensus building that the right thing is that it's a red card because it's going to make players change their tackles and it's going to make the game safer and it's going to make the game sustainable. At the same time, I have a bit of sympathy for Cipriani because like you see
I have
much
a lot
worse.
of sympathy for him. I have a lot of sympathy. He's backing out of the tackle and he's trying to get out of there, to be honest. He doesn't want to make that tackle. And Rapava Ruskin, the loose head prop, is inside him. He's about to go for the big hit. And even the still shot on the papers is, Rory Scannell is kind of heading down. He's about to put the head down like that. And look, if he swallows up the tackle and Rory Scannell hits him in the chest,
nobody even thinks about it.
Would you believe I never got pulled for high tackles? And I wasn't a good tackler, but I tackled a lot with my arms and chest, so I wrapped guys, and a lot of the time I got the impact in my chest. But I never, if you're going in with the shoulder, you just got to be really careful, and I just don't think there's an intent there. I understand Johan Ackerman's frustration after the game when he says, well, intent shouldn't mean red, and there's a lot of these are kind of accidental clashes, but it's kind of short-term pain for long-term gain, I think. And if you go back 2 years ago when Ireland played the All Blacks in November, you remember Sam Kane's when Robbie Henshaw spins around and he gets shoulder straight into the head.
Yeah.
It's not even a penalty then. Feketawa's tackle on Zebo. They're 2 red cards now, so it's moved on. Now you have a lot of people giving out. Billy Vunipola tweeted the other day during the game, I looked at it afterwards, another game ruined by a stupid decision or something like that.
You actually got into a bit of a spat with Ross Tucker, I think, on Twitter.
Slightly overmatched in terms of intellectual
But we see some of the players now are doing it. Is the game gone soft? Jesus, I don't think it's gone soft. I think there's a breakdown in this interpretation. And, you go back to the Leicester one a few weeks ago when Jordan Murphy kind of made that comment about going soft when his player was sent off against Wasps. Or was he cited afterwards or was he sent off?
Sent off.
Yeah, he was sent off, yeah. Shoulder to face, sometimes there's going to be accidental clashes. Now, there was talks and there's a bit of stuff online about CJ Stander's side on 12 trees early on. But it's shoulder on shoulder. He doesn't hit him in the face. Stephen Archer's one at the end, is he definite yellow? You could argue that 12 trees could have been a red if Cipriani's on Joey Carberry. Like, there's a lot of force coming across there. Now, I know he ends up kind of grabbed like that.
Yeah, or
we're seeing a lot of it, and I say this a lot. Joe Schmidt, these are the little minute details, this attention to detail. So his players now for November, that's stuff that he'll be very conscious of going into, speaking to the referees who's refereeing.
One last point on this though, that this isn't necessarily, those sendings off aren't really about the Champions Cup and international rugby. They're about the under 12, under 14, under 16 game and the youth game, where there is no recourse to the video referee, where you start seeing these tackles and they start getting red cards, and those age groups habits change and the game is safe and will continue to be played.
Yeah, it's hard in a contact sport to keep them all low. There's no doubt about it, but the technique and the practice has to be to try and hear. And if you're wrapping the ball going high, I've never seen a high tackle with someone wrapping a guy.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen an arm slip up and a penalty and maybe be careful.
Yeah,
but
that's fair enough.
It's the impact of shoulder contact and face. And it's very difficult for players as well, Ger, because some of the pick and goes around the side of ruck. You remember the one Remy Grosso's one against the All Blacks? He got the shoulder into the face and fractured his jaw. It's those kind of forceful added impacts from the second player. Sometimes we scrag a player and it's the second guy, which the defensive coaches are saying, if a guy is coming at me and he steps and I'm scragging him, then I want Owen to step in and finish the tackle and tag the ball.
Yeah.
That's fine. But this guy now has to be much more careful about the force he's putting in.
The spectacle improves as well. Like Neil Francis made a very good point yesterday in the paper, saying that ultimately if you're tackling lower, your hands are freer, it leads to more offloads. Like, it's a win-win in terms of welfare, in terms of the spectacle.
Yeah, it is. And James Lowe had one on Colby yesterday with the ball that went up in the air, and he gets behind Colby and kind of, he's trying to grab the ball, but he ends up putting his hands around his neck. Like, that's not a red card, that's not a yellow card, it's just a penalty.
There's common sense there.
They're the accidental ones that there's no force in. And the big thing for me is force. if the force isn't there, like there's no force in Archer's arm. It's a grapple, and he grabs him. It's a yellow card. It's not a red.
Yeah. Let's just talk briefly about Carberry, because there was that beautiful no-look behind him. I'm delighted that it ended up in a try in the far corner, because it will be part of the highlight reels forever, but he's getting to a point now where, like, for his age, you're starting to think, the sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, well, he's playing a number of games now, so the focus has kind of gone off. Is he a 10, and is he that his best position? He's now seems to be happy, enjoying himself. And you know what? He's been through a bit of, like, patchy period with Munster where it's been tough. You know, that loss away in Cardiff, the loss to Leinster over in Exeter, that's hard stuff. He's in physical collisions. And his defence, I thought, the other day was brilliant. His cover tackling as well.
It was amazing, yeah.
And it wasn't easy because his pack were very disjointed at times, and he wasn't getting it on like the ball wasn't really quick coming out of the breakdown. Gloucester were targeting him. Like they were running around the side of rucks and trying to get their time, and just to hit him, get in his face. And that's what Gloucester did very well the other day, and I think Munster need to figure this out. Is teams are trying to squeeze him back in, so they're closing the outside channels and pushing him back in. You know, Sweetenham got very little ball, and I think he's a brilliant balanced open field runner. If he gets a little bit of space, he has that bit of a goose step on him.
Yeah.
Conroy didn't really get enough of ball. Haley's getting in heavy traffic as well. So you have a back three there with a fair bit of pace, and they're not getting options to kind of go one-on-one with guys, and that's because it's breaking down in field a little bit. So slowing them down and then closing that kind of channel from 13 in, if you like. So look, this period that they're going through will actually make them stronger. You think if you put Conor Murray back in that team, Chris Farrell, Jaco Taute, Keith Earls, there's a fair few options there then, you know what I mean? So they're a bit stretched there, and to be fair, the guys that are there doing, you know, they're doing a good job, but they need to be better and more clinical. And
just a word about Tommy O'Donnell, obviously. It was
heartbreaking, you know, it's... Tommy's from my hometown club, Clanwilliam, and so I've obviously extra interest in him, and a Tipperary man as well, and I just think he's some sort of a curse maybe that I had at times, you know, because it makes no sense when you're going well, you get back in action, and it's not... I often try to assess my injuries and say, is it something I'm doing? You're only beating yourself up. There's nothing Tommy's doing.
Has he done that before, that particular injury?
No,
I don't recall.
I don't think so, no. His ankle gets twisted underneath, and the weight comes down, it gets trapped. You know, some guys never get injured. It's heartbreaking. You think of what happened to him a few years ago when he was in the mix for the World Cup in 15, where he dislocated his hip, an injury you very, very rarely see in rugby. He's had shoulder operations on both shoulders. And to be fair, he looked in brilliant shape coming back. He's a brilliant attitude. He's a great kid, I think, and he's not a kid anymore. He's 29, but he's a great attitude, and he's going to have to dust himself down again now and go back. Has it been confirmed that the ankle is broke? Or
it's the suspicion. It's definitely been mentioned a lot in the papers, but no confirmation.
I was just hoping it was probably the ligaments and that he might. Look, when he sat up, I said, this doesn't look as bad, but it's tough for him because, you know, he made such an impact last week, and just injuries are killers.
Yeah, and there's suddenly not that stacked in the back row. I was just checking Jack O'Donoghue's injury situation. It was May when he did ligament damage.
I spoke to him, he's back running. I spoke to him on Saturday, he's back running, and he's back doing a little bit, but he's still like a bit away.
Early in the new year?
Christmas, January, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's all right. Well, that's good, because I kind of was hoping that wasn't going to be a year. That's like, there'd be a chance for him to get back in, obviously, if Clute's not injured, he wasn't in the squad for whatever reason at the weekend. So they could do with a bit more back row cover.
Yeah, Dave O'Callaghan's going around on crutches, and
what's Conor Oliver's story?
Conor Oliver, he's due back pretty soon as well. So
like, he was a shining light last year. He was kind of like the Sammy Arnold mould who kind of broke out last year.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he's so they are a bit stretched there, and it's like any squad. I went through the Gloucester team the other day, and I started picking out guys who were injured and people that have to come back as well. But nearly every team you go, there's 6-7 guys out of all the teams. So is the game gone soft, Ger? I think if you look at the injury profiles for any squad, it's not gone soft. I think it's gone through a bit of a transitional period around this head-high stuff.
Let's talk about Leinster, obviously beaten in Toulouse by Toulouse performance for the ages, really, exactly like you kind of remembered Toulouse from the late 90s, the whole way through their glory era. I was like, oh, this isn't the same Toulouse team anymore. Who are these guys anyway? And it's like, well, actually, they're very good. Amazing pace, brilliant offloading game, forwards who are savage. Exactly what you want from Toulouse.
I was surprised because I did the game the week before against Bath, in Bath, and to be fair, they showed glimpses of their danger and their ambition. And I had a good chat with Mike Prendergast a few weeks ago, just trying to, see what they were like and what's he seen, what's the talk in France. And he said, look, to be fair to them, they're having a real go throwing the ball around. And if a couple of passes stick for them, they can really hurt teams. And they've done that in patches in games. I saw a little bit of that in Bath, so I was able to agree with him. He thought when Intimac plays from in centre, he's a sensation, to be fair. And I just thought for the first 15, 20 minutes before he went off yesterday, the ability, and it sounds simple, to catch the ball and straighten and fix the player on the run. And he did that at one stage. And it's little things like that I try and pick out in a player. I think he's a brilliant footballer. Him going off, I thought, that's Toulouse's chance gone. Because they started brilliantly, 14-3. I thought when he went off, Hougier has to go into the centre. Guitoun is a winger as well. So they've two wingers in the centre. They're down to their last loose head prop. But I just thought they were fantastic. Elstad, the number 6 yesterday, was phenomenal. And that's the kind of stuff I would watch. The tackles he made around the side of the rucks, the impact stopping James Ryan, Toner, Tyke Furlong, Healy, these guys who are normally very dominant over the gain line. Tolofua, he was sensational at number 8.
Yeah.
His footwork at times, his carries.
For one of the tries, is it their last try, or their second last try, where he kind of steps towards Sean O'Brien. O'Brien leans in to make the tackle, and he just steps back, and O'Brien just falls over. It's like, I've never seen that.
It's incredible little footwork to be able to kind of feign going forward and then swerve a little bit.
And Larmour getting sent the wrong way as well for the second last Toulouse.
Well, Guitoun, a great step from him. He has that bit of a goose step. But Charlie Faumuina, who sometimes you question fitness and stuff, he's 50 caps for the All Blacks. I thought he was incredible for 50 minutes, however long he was on. The amount of tackles he made, Joe Takori, so they were up for the game. Now, I don't think Leo Cullen and Leinster would be surprised by that. They put themselves in a very good position to win it, going 28-21. Okay, some stuff has gone on here. We've readjusted. We're going to get the bonus point win now, and then they get the intercept off a really good kind of platform to attack from. And it's a certainty that Madoul and Toulouse, the guy who intercepted, they've seen it in the tape. They've seen it in the video. His timing was perfection. Now, I know some people say, oh, he's a yard offside. He's not. Luke McGrath picks up the ball to take a step. Your man just times it perfectly.
It wasn't the first time they'd done it either?
No, and they do that a little bit. And look, they're very good at their attacking plays. And sometimes, no matter how much you've seen something, it's hard to stop it because it's all about the first pivotal point of contact where whoever carried it up. The execution there, Maida gets to try and you think, Jesus, this is phenomenal. Toulouse didn't have a lot of the ball in the second half. They didn't have a lot of sustained pressure in Leinster's half. I think Leinster, it wasn't a bad performance, but I think their game management could have been better. They had 16 turnovers. I spoke to you last week, a couple of weeks ago, and we were here. Maybe it was, I can't remember, was it Friday or Monday of after one of the games, and they had 64 rucks, and they won 64 of them.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of accuracy with the ball, and very small turnovers. You're always going to have a few turnovers. They had 16 turnovers yesterday, so that helped Toulouse at times. And, you know, Toulouse had 17 offloads. If you go to France, Sharon, it was the one thing I always remember was don't let the opposition offload. So when you tackle them, try and bring them to ground or tag the ball. How many times you see him making a bit of contact, spinning around, offloading? It just kept it alive, and it kept him going yesterday. So I think Leinster learned from it. It wasn't a bad performance, but they came up against a Toulouse side who surprised a lot of people, and they played really well.
The other thing as well, watching it yesterday, is out of the last couple of years of the Champions Cup, there isn't a whole pile of matches outside of Ireland where you're like, that is an unbelievable cauldron of energy and one of the great sporting theatres in the world that I want to be in. Yesterday, watching that, I wanted to be in Toulouse, sampling that atmosphere firsthand. Like, without using the cliche here, that was a good result for the tournament. It was great to see Toulouse back in that atmosphere down there, booming in the stadium.
Yeah, well, it gave other teams a bit of hope when they play Leinster, and to look at some of the defence, the line speed, how they stayed organised, they kept numbers in defence, they didn't bite down at the breakdown. Because Leinster had a fair bit of ball at times, and they were looking for options inside and outside, and there was red jerseys in front of them. So I thought Toulouse, surprisingly, were very well organised in defence. And they still could have lost it. They won by a point at home. So we're gone to a situation now where it's a bad result for Leinster when they lose by a point in Toulouse, which back in the day, if you're that close away from home, like we lost 13-12 in 2003 in a semi-final against Toulouse. And to be fair, you know, we were expected to be blown away, and you get that close, sometimes you're happy with it. Leinster wouldn't be happy. That just goes to show the level, and they will learn a lot from that.
The Grubber kicks through as well. It seemed like whatever Toulouse understood about Leinster's defence, that they were Grubber kicking through and gathering, like 3 or 4 times. If it happens once, you think, okay, well, that's interesting. It's been a good kick and a good chase. But it was actually clearly, whatever way Leinster's defence were coming up, whoever Toulouse had on either side of wherever the ruck was, they were able to kick through and gather. And you're like, well, I haven't seen that before.
They found little options, and that comes from the analysis. Maybe there's a little bit of space in behind there, and obviously they exploited that a few times. And you think they lost the ball in contact a fair bit in the second half, Toulouse, when they looked quite dangerous.
Yeah.
So they kept going, and you got to give them credit for that, because the expectation, and I heard this a lot, that it'll be the last 20 minutes, and I kind of expected Toulouse to fade off a little bit, but that's why it was so impressive, and you see what it meant to them at the end. So it's out of respect for Leinster. Leinster are still a phenomenal side, and I think 9 times out of 10, if they play that game again, they win it. They just got caught a little bit cold yesterday. The start, and Leo Cullen said that, even though they got back ahead, Toulouse were still in the game. There was 6 points in it. I think one more score and it could have been 20 points.
Yeah, it didn't feel comfortable for any point at Leinster.
No, and there was always the day. It just had that feel, Jared, that unless they get another score, a penalty or a try, at 6 points, Toulouse actually believe. And if the French believe, they could do. And they proved it.
That's the point about the crowd as well. One last point. You talked about O'Gara saying that there was no sense of pressure building up. There was no sense of Leinster being in control, even though they had a bit more possession in the second half. And that's kind of what we would have associated. Even if you think back to the Champions Cup final last year, like Leinster had the ability to march up the field and win a penalty against Racing in the final. They didn't feel like they could control the game against Toulouse for whatever reason.
It's coming from pressure, Ger, as well, and a little bit sloppy. So if you're a couple of % off, which Leinster maybe were at times with their accuracy, and they got a little bit frustrated by that pressure that Toulouse were putting them under in defence, and they were maybe a little bit surprised how well they were organised. Like I said, their back row was phenomenal. The amount of tackles, Verhaeg, the second row, Takori. So you have 5 guys there, big, strong, athletic guys who were getting through a bundle of work with the ball, without the ball. So if you're effective like that as a back 5, you're influencing the game a lot. And those 5 are really powerful. Marchand is a super player, the hooker. I think he'll start for France in November, if not November, the Six Nations, over Guradu, which is a big call. Faumina was brilliant. Castet, the loose head. So as a pack,
they're pretty
and
good.
maybe it's a case of Hugo Molo saying, lads, if we don't turn up here and play above ourselves and play with passion, desire and fight, we're going to get hosed at home here. And so it's amazing when your kind of stuff is on the line, how players react. But like I said, Leinster just got a little bit shell-shocked about how good they were defensively, and then they weren't able to build those big number of phases. And even sometimes, look, they started the game, the second half, they were brilliant. They get the 2 tries, you think, it's sorted now.
On Saturday night in Paris, did Simon Zebo have to apologise?
No, he didn't. It's a load of rubbish if you ask me. I think I wouldn't be happy if I was a player. I think if it was done internally, and if I was an Ulster player, I'd probably say to Zeebs after the game, stop being a smart arse, or you shouldn't have done that. He's only a young fella after coming into the team. Have a bit of respect. And I think straight away the type of person he is hands up. But I don't think the referee has to get involved and say, you got to go over there and apologise.
That made a thing of it, really, because Michael Lowry wasn't really making it.
He wasn't. Now, Stuart McCluskey ran across. I'm probably the Stuart McCluskey running across the field saying, I'll kill you in the next ruck, or you're not getting away with that, whatever. But I think it's just blown out of proportion. He plays with a bit of a smile on his face, and he's eccentric. And
Here's Zebo tweeted last night. Again, I'd say his adrenaline's still pumping through. Really sorry to Michael Lowry, got too excited. I don't do stuff like that as long as I've played. I wouldn't like my kids doing that. I'm disappointed in myself. Made a mistake. Not in the spirit of the game. Keep up the great work. Sorry again. Does he not do it in training?
And you got to believe that. That's not. I'm putting out a statement after.
Totally.
I feel that he's telling the truth there. You know what I mean? He's not going. This is the. Oh God, I got to do this for the PC to be PC.
No,
I think he's genuinely means it.
Yeah, I do. But I do think that's his. Like, I think that if he skinned you in training, he'd be pointing at you, and you would be going, "I'm going to get him next time." And
that's what happens in training.
And that's what it looked like.
If one of the backs, or even Wally was the quickest one in our back row, and sometimes he'd run past you and he'd be laughing or jeering or stuff.
So there's the Nigel Owens picture of Nigel Owens going over and making a big deal out of it. Like, when it's not really
any his business. Look, it's not a big thing. Even him saying it, I'm not making a big thing about it, but it's kind of highlighting the thing a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's something that is storming a teacup, to be honest. And I'm glad Simon Zebo apologised and gave me his jersey and stuff. It would have been nice to hear that without being told you have to apologise, because that's where it would have been really authentic and good to hear that's good sport. Everybody makes mistakes in the field, and I think, like you say, it's stuff that probably happens in training and shouldn't have happened with Zeeves the other night. But
is Nigel Owens too much of a celebrity referee at this point?
He's a good referee anyway. We won't ever take that, because I know Nigel well and he's a good fella, but I just think he's sometimes is a bit too much.
At least they're preaching respect.
Yeah, no, in fairness, and Luke Fitzgerald used to be giving out about Nigel all the time, and saying he's a celebrity ref and he's getting too involved and he's saying too much. And it was brilliant, because Luke had done that a good few times, and we went to the Pro 14 Awards 2 years ago, and I was with Luke and Nigel walked in, and he was close by, and I pushed Luke right in front of him, and I said, "No, Luke, say it to his face." Luke, he kind of sank down a little bit, and so I got him right in front of each other, and they had a chat and they were laughing about it. But no, I think he can take it as well. Sometimes there's just a bit too much talk, and a quiet referee sometimes is a good referee. Nigel Owens is a brilliant referee, there's no doubt about that. But I just think it's not his place to tell him about the values of the game.
Ulster did get spanked. That kind of has been a bit overlooked. Like, it wasn't a game that they were in, and that's really where they are at the moment. That's the truth of where Ulster are at the moment.
Unfortunately, yeah. They started well, and I actually thought they had a right chance going to Racing. I thought if they held on to the ball, they looked dangerous. They had a great start, 2 tries. You think this is going to be an historic win for them, possibly, if they keep going. But just their scrum went to tatters. Their lineup was sloppy and just falling off tackles, and when Racing just built that momentum and pressure that we're talking about there earlier, there was just gaps all over the place. From you think of the try, Ibrahim's try down the short side to make it, I'm not sure what did that make it, 17-12, but the one off the scrum where they just disintegrated in the scrum, and it's Stockdale on his own with an 8-9, like it's very soft. So there's a few really soft scores in it. There was a knock-on for one of them that was missed, and it shouldn't be a try. But look, they blew him away. After 25 minutes, it was just all Racing after that, and they were very physical and manhandled Ulster, unfortunately.
It's a strange pool, isn't it, seeing what Leicester did to Scarlets then as well at the weekend. It could go either way. It's probably the most intriguing pool from a neutral perspective. Yeah,
Ulster are not out of it. They win their home games, and they pick up something. They take, so they're not out of it by any manner of means. They'll have to try and get an away win somewhere, whether that's in Leicester or in Scarlets. But look, they're not completely out of it. But that was a bit demoralising the way it finished in the end.
Yeah. All right. All good stuff. Thanks for that.